Now, if the government takes $5 from you and spends $10, then we would say that's expansionary. Because the government's only taking 5 from you and spending 10. Right? Now, if that's the case, we say this is an expansionary action. Now, if you think about an expansionary fiscal policy, what do you do in an expansionary fiscal policy? Well, in an expansionary fiscal policy, you increase government spending and you reduce taxation. What does that do to the budget deficit? Or what does that do to the budget? Creates a deficit. What is the deficit? Expansionary. Right? It's expansionary. Now, how about contractionary? What happens there? Well, if the level of government spending, right, the level of government spending is less than the level of government taxes, then you've got a surplus. Right? Then you've got a surplus. Now, if you've got a surplus, what are we saying? We're saying we're taking $10 from you in taxes, but we're only spending 5. If that's true, then what's happening? Then we would say that's contractionary. Right? That's contractionary. Because we're taking 10 from you. You would have spent that 10, or some of it, most of it. But we're going to take it from you, and we're only going to spend part of it. Now, this is going to create a budgetary surplus, to be sure, but that budgetary surplus is going to be contractionary. That budgetary surplus is going to be contractionary. So when we undertake an expansionary fiscal policy, we alter the level of taxation and spending, right? Which affects the budget, in one way or the other, creates a surplus, creates a deficit, and that surplus and deficit either is expansionary or contractionary, which attempts to bring the economy to it wherever we want it to be, right? I mean, that's fiscal policy. Now, we talked about, and our entire conversation here is about what we call discretionary fiscal policy, where we said, okay, we've got a problem, let's decide to do something about it. We also talked about in class automatic stabilization. And automatic stabilization is when automatically, if there is a recession, a budgetary deficit is created. And if there is inflation, a budgetary surplus is created. And we call this automatic stabilization. And we said things like the progressive tax scale, tend to be an automatic stabilizer. I'm sorry?
You said things like something.
The progressive tax scale. Okay. Now, you said a lot more about that, but let's move on to monetary policy, right? I mean, there's a lot more to be said about expansionary, fiscal policy. Now, let's move on to monetary.
That's military to do like banking and stuff. Like
Yes.
money and
Right. Monetary policies, again, we want to influence this, right? So we've got either this problem or this problem, right? So you've got either too much demand or too little demand. And we're saying, well, one way we can fix that is with fiscal policy, right? Another way to fix that is with monetary policy, or at least if we're Keynesian, we say this. If we say fixing it is a good idea, which not everybody says, who says it's not a good idea to fix it?
Classical economists?
The classical economists, and the modern manifestation of the classical economists, they would call themselves, they call themselves monetarists, right? So there are 3 big groups out there, in terms of economic thinking. The Keynesians, and what distinguishes the Keynesians? The Keynesians are the people that think that you can manipulate aggregate demand to fix problems, and you should, right? Monetary and fiscal policy can be effectively used to kind of adjust demand to remedy problems in the economy. That's kind of the Keynesian, modern Keynesian mantra, right? The monetarists are those that think, well, gee, fiscal policy is totally ineffective. The only thing that influences anything is money. And money can, in the short run, affect the level of real economic activity, but in the long run, the monetarists argue it only affects the level of prices. So you are better off to let the circumstance go. Don't try to fix it. Right? So the monetarists would be reluctant to take, even though they think that monetary policy could be effective, right? Or work in the short run, you shouldn't use it. And the other group that's out there is the rational expectationists. And the rational expectationists don't think that fiscal or monetary policy will be effective because they suspect that people will kind of anticipate what will result from the action, and then because of that anticipation, it will negate it. Right? It will negate the effect. The rational expectationists suggest that monetary and fiscal policy don't work because people anticipate the effects of it. If there's an expansionary monetary or fiscal policy, then people will expect it to be inflationary. And therefore they'll behave in that manner, and all that will happen is that prices will go up. Right? And so then it really won't have any effect. So the only people that want to do anything are the Keynesians, right? So you're going to get these questions. You're going to say, okay, Joe Smith is a Keynesian, Bob Jones is a monetarist, this is what's suggested, who would think it would be a good idea? Right? So you'll get that kind of question probably on the macro test. So this general overview is okay, right? But let's do monetary policy real quickly. When we talk about monetary policy, again, the Keynesians would think that the value in monetary policy is that we can manipulate the money supply and by doing so affect aggregate demand. Okay? Now, they would focus on something we call the money market. Okay? Interest, quantity of money. Now this would be the nominal interest rate. This would be the nominal interest rate, right? So the interest rate is the price of money. That's what I pay for it, right? If I borrow money, I'm renting money, and I pay a rate. That's an interest rate, right? Okay. Now, we say that there is a demand for money. And it is downward sloping. A demand for money. So as the interest rate goes down, people demand to hold more money, to be more liquid. Right? So there is a demand for money. Right? Now, we also say there's a supply of money. Let's call the supply of money M1. The supply of money is M1. Now, we spent time, and on the test, there's going to be questions about M1, right? What is money? What's money? How do we define money? Now, we define money is whatever is immediately usable as a medium, an accepted medium of exchange. So what makes M1 M1? Well, M1 is M1 because that's value in a form that can be immediately used as a medium of exchange. So what makes up M1? Well, what makes up M1 is currency, right? Plus all funds in demand deposit or checkable accounts. Right? So this is the money supply, right? Now, if you look at the way we put the money supply on this graph, we say this, that the money supply is perfectly inelastic. Now, what that means is, it doesn't matter what the rate of interest is, the quantity of money supplied is always going to be the same. Right? Now, who determines that? Who determines how much money is out there in circulation? Yes. So the money supply is determined by the Fed. And the Fed is the central bank. Right? Is the central bank of the United States.